Good morning, students. We are going to start with the topic in the sources of energy biogas plant, that is a non-conventional source of energy. We have studied biomass as a conventional source of energy in our previous lecture. Biomass means the waste material obtained from the kettle dung, from the vegetable farms, from you can say the waste material which has been collected in the house. These all comes to the category of biomass. Now, what is basically a biogas? Whenever the biomass undergoes anaerobic degradation, it means whenever we degrade it with the help of bacteria which do not require oxygen for their degradation. This process is called anaerobic degradation or anaerobic decomposition. So, whenever your biomass undergoes degradation, it gives out a gas. That gas is called biogas. Now, biogas is basically a mixture of different gases resulting from anaerobic decomposition. So, this is the principle on which biogas plant can be set up. Now, what is the composition of biogas? Biogas comprises of several gases, but the major component of biogas is methane 75%, carbon dioxide 20%, and your hydrogen sulfide, nitrogen, hydrogen, other gases are in a very little amount. Now, moreover, moving on to the biogas plant. Biogas plant can be categorized under two major headings. One is your fixed dome type biogas plant. Second is floating gas holder type biogas plant. But we will be dealing with the first one, that is fixed dome type biogas plant. The reason for this is that this is quite cheap in installing, as well as it has low maintenance. Therefore, maximum villagers or the government prefer using fixed dome type biogas plant. The only advantage floating gas holder type biogas plant has that it can hold a large amount of biogas in it. Now moving on to the construction and working of a biogas plant look like this. This whole setup is built under the ground. Now, here you can see there is a mixing tank. In this mixing tank, what they do, they use all the biomass. For example, we set up a biogas plant in a village area. We can have kettle dung because they have large number of cows, buffaloes in their dairy farms. So we can have a large amount of kettle dung from them. We can have large amount of the roughage left from the farms or the village areas. We can also use the biodegradable waste, that is the leftovers of your vegetables, of your fruits, and we can use all these things and mix them with the water. This mixing of water and biomass makes a substance which is called slurry. This slurry is put into the inlet chamber. From this inlet chamber, this slurry enters the digester tank. When it enters the digester tank, this wall is being closed. Now the bacteria, they start acting on this biomass and produce a biogas. This biogas takes round about 30 to 40 days to initiate or start or collect in this biogas plant. After 30-40 days, once the biogas has starts its production, then you can use it on a regular base. Now, this digester tank undergoes anaerobic decomposition and produces biogas. This biogas is collected by this gas valve and goes through the biogas outflow. Now, this is all about the biogas, but what about the leftover? There is a large amount of leftover substance over here. After the 30-40 days process, now we are going on adding the slurry in this biogas plant. Now when we are adding the slurry in this, the leftover from this digester tank will move out to the outlet chamber and will goes to the overflow tank. This spent slurry is quite rich in nitrogenous substances, compounds, and it can be further used in your fields, like it can be used as a manure in your gardens, it can be used as a manure in fields. So this will also help the farmers in using the natural manures rather than going for the fertilizers, because this manure is quite rich in nitrogenous compounds and which are essential for your crops. So this is a basic setup for your biogas plant. This diagram is very important with respect to your 10th class board examination. It's working as well as its principle. It comes in exam. So what is the principle? Let's quickly revise it out. The principle of biogas plant is anaerobic decomposition. That is the anaerobic bacteria that is without oxygen. Anaerobic means without oxygen. These bacteria decompose the biomass and results in the production of biogas. This biogas is collected in the digester tank and can be used through the pipelines in our houses. Now, what are the advantages of using biogas in our daily life? Why it is called conventional source? Again, one should know that as biogas contains 75% of methane gas. Methane gas burns with almost no residue and is a very clean fuel. So, in this clean fuel, I must say, what are advantages? The advantages of using biogas is number one, it is very cheap because it is obtained from all the waste materials. It only needs one construction site. Once you have that construction site, it is very cheap. It produces no residue, right? It pollutes almost no pollution, or you can say no smoke. It has high calorific value, right? So these are the advantages of using biogas in our daily life. It means it is a very, very good fuel. Even it is good than your LPG, which we are using on a daily basis. Now, what are disadvantages of using? It has hardly any disadvantage, but the only disadvantage is that it has a high construction cost because everything is to be built under the ground. So it has high construction cost, right? A large amount of waste material is required, and moreover, the next advantage is it takes 30 to 40 days to start. But once it is started, you can use it anytime, endlessly. Moreover, it can not be compressed, it can only be transferred through the pipeline. So, what is required? Pipelines are required for transportation. So, these are some advantages and some disadvantages of using biogas plant or your biogas. Now, we are moving on to the next heading, that is your geothermal energy. Now, what is geothermal energy? Now, your floating type biogas plant is not as such in syllabus, but if it comes, the only difference is that the upper dome of the biogas plant is in floating nature, so that whenever it collects the biogas, it rises up, right? So it is not as much important as your fixed dome type. If it comes in exam, we are only going to do with the fixed dome type biogas plant. Now moving on to your next form of energy, that is your geothermal energy. Now what is geothermal energy? It is also known in the form called hot spots. So if you see the board questions, there is a question in exams, what are hot spots? 1 mark question. Earlier it used to come. Now what are hot spots? Let's try to understand. Now below the earth crust, as we know that there are 3 layers: crust, mantle, core. Right? These are the 3 layers: crust, mantle, and the center layer is called. Now, as we know that the core mainly consists of your molten metals or the metals with very high temperature. Now, sometimes what happens, the in some areas, this molten metals or this molten metals, they have a very high temperature, and because of Earth's extreme pressure, these liquid metals are pressed onto the surface of the Earth. So these molten materials are pressed to the surface or to the crust. Now these molten metals are having a very high temperature, right? And they reach the underground water. These molten metals at some particular surfaces, they reach the underground water. Now whenever underground water will be heated, it will be converted into steam, right? So here what we find is on the surface we find some hot springs. We find some hot springs, that is hot water springs, arises due to the temperature of the underground water has risen to a particular level. For example, if you have ever seen, there is a Gurdwara which is called Manikaran Sahib. In that you find a hot spring where normally the people used to cook their food in that hot water. Right? That hot spring is because there is a hot spot. Hot spot is a region, you can say, where you can find the hot water under the ground, right? So in hotspots, in simple words, we can say hotspots are the spots or the certain places where hot rocks can be found which heat the water. Now, in simple words, how we can get the energy from this? Now, what they do is they use a pipeline, and the pipeline goes to the hot water region, right? So this is your pipeline. Pipeline goes to the hot water region. Suppose this is your ground. This is your pipeline going to hot water spring. This is your hot spot. Now this pipeline will carry steam. The steam is used to run turbine. Turbine further rotates the generator, and generator produce electricity. It produces electricity. So this is how we get energy from a hotspot or from geothermal. That is, we are getting the energy from the geographical locations. Now, this is a very easy method, but the problem with this is that the problem is with the location of hotspots. Not everywhere we can find hotspots. We can only find hotspots at some particular positions or at certain regions. And moreover, finding the hotspot at these certain regions, these regions are very much confined, as well as the life of getting energy from such regions is about 9 to 10 years only. So what is the advantage? First advantage of setting or to from getting the geothermal energy is that it is almost cheap. Again, right? Cheap. Again, this energy is no pollution over there because we are directly getting steam from under the ground. So no pollution, it is cheap, it is, you can say, no residue or whatever. It is, you can say, eco-friendly in all the manners. But what are disadvantages? We can only, or we can say, we can only find these geothermal spots or hotspots at certain places, or places are confined. Now, when places are confined or at certain places, what we are going to find? It is only available for limited time period. Suppose I set up a geothermal power plant at some place, right? So I can only get energy from that power plant from 9 to 10 years. After 9 to 10 years, the molten rocks may move down. It may result in the decrease in the temperature. So I hardly, or it will be difficult to obtain energy from that spot. So it hardly lasts for 9 to 10 years. And then I need to move to a next geothermal hotspots. So we are done with your geothermal power plant or geothermal energy, and we are also done with the biogas plant. We are left with your nuclear energy, which I will be dealing in the next video. Thank you for today. I will be uploading the assignment kindly too. Thank you so much.